Welcome to a special edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Reiter. And Bill, the revenge game that we were promised for Jimmy Butler in Miami by two guys who look just like you and me earlier today didn't materialize.
That game was garbage. I know it's garbage, but it was not the out. Let me take that back. It was a revenge game. It just wasn't the one that I anticipated.
Not what we anticipated. Later in the show, we're going to talk about Dame Lillard's injury news. Bill has some fresh reporting there. But first, the Jimmy Butler return to Miami was a little bit of a dud here, Bill. You were expecting Jimmy Butler to have a monster, to MF the guys up and down the floor, maybe to stare daggers at Pat Riley. We thought Steph Curry was going to return. None of that materialized. No Steph Curry, still out with a pelvic injury, flew to Miami, I guess, to enjoy the nightlife. And then Jimmy Butler just didn't look like himself. I think that prior to the game, Bill, in the run up to the game, he had said, it's just another game. We were okay when I was there, but I've moved on, whatever. Taylor Rooks in the game, sideline reporter for TNT, said that she asked Jimmy Butler about, hey, do you have any words for Pat Riley? And he said, I have no words for Pat Riley if I see him, and he better not have any words for me. And I don't know that Jimmy was necessarily distracted in this, but I can say that he didn't play well. Draymond didn't play well. Really, nobody played well in this game for the Warriors.
It turns out, and we knew one of these two things, John, that the Warriors really require Steph Curry, and they dropped some interesting stats in the halftime show about just the Warriors' really poor record on the road this year, just years past with Steph out. And it turns out the Heat really need Jimmy, even if he's on the other team, because when Jimmy's with the Heat, they're good. And when Jimmy plays against the Heat, they were – Tyler Hero was good. Bam was awesome. I mean, that the way they played defense on Jimmy, especially in that first half, that's the version of Miami. Prideful. Wiggins played really well. That sort of prideful, pissed off, we're going to out-hustle you guys. We're going to be physical. I don't know where that's been for the last 20 since February 6th, but it showed up tonight. It was an interesting 180 from what we expected.
He got going a little bit in the second half, but you can see the first half numbers there from Jimmy Butler, just 1 of 6 from the floor, no free throws. Normally he's aggressive getting downhill, just 2 points, 3 rebounds. I mean, he was largely absent in the first half, as were all of the starters, really. The starters, Bill, combined tonight, 2 for 20 from 3. For the game, they shot under 24% from 3. In the first half, the starters had exactly no 3-pointers. I mean, they just could not get a shot to fall at all. And you mentioned how important it is to have Steph Curry out there. It really is that. I mean, we've talked, and I think rightly so, about how good Jimmy Butler has been with the Golden State Warriors this season. When he plays, they are 16-4. They're 16-5 overall since the deadline. He has been really good for them. However, it really does come down to, Jimmy Butler has been great for them, and he's unlocked and helped Draymond Green, but it all has to do with Steph Curry. When they have Steph Curry this season, Bill, 6th best offensive rating in the NBA. When they don't have Steph Curry, including tonight, they are last in the NBA in offensive rating.
I will say this, something that we slept on in our analysis, or the two guys that look a lot like, the two really good-looking, charming guys who look a lot like us from 12 hours earlier, there is a Miami flu thing that's real. And I was watching the game and just how pathetic the Warriors looked. And I thought, they were out till 7 a.m. That's a real thing. I covered that team, and we all know about that
because this is a weird schedule. So they're on the road for 13 days and they're in Miami right now. And for whatever reason, quirk of the schedule, whatever, they have 5 days in Miami.
So there's dog years, right? Like 5 days in Vegas is 30 days wherever you actually live.
At least more over.
I once did an 8-day bachelor party there. 7 days in Miami, if you're an NBA player, is a good. I mean, it's a good 3 weeks.
That's a lifetime. Yeah, no doubt about it. So we expected a lot of, I guess, pomp and circumstance. We discussed what would happen with the Jimmy Butler tribute video. They decided to play the tribute video as Jimmy was getting introduced tonight. The crowd, as we said, we were like, well, what will the crowd reaction be? But Miami, famously, the crowd shows up pretty late. The lower bowl was like half full. So there was like a smattering of applause, a couple of lukewarm boos. It all ultimately came down to like Jimmy's back, and there wasn't a whole lot of pomp and circumstance there.
The entire experience, just in terms of what was going to happen for Jimmy Butler, how he was going to play, it sort of fizzled. I mean, this is the old Miami Heat. Just go. They haven't been like this since he left, but this was the old go out, go about your business. I thought there was a really interesting conversation during the broadcast where they talked about how Spoelstra said, obviously the broadcasters get to talk to the head coach before the game and get some insight. And apparently Spoelstra told them, I don't really want to talk about Jimmy Butler. But then they mentioned that they asked how was his relationship with Jimmy, and he said it was great until it wasn't. It's like,
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, I guess like the most interesting thing is that Jimmy hates everybody. And it did affect him. He didn't play well. He was passive, and I know he got it going in the second half, but I think he had like an accidental tip in with his right arm or his left arm. Even when he sort of got it going, he didn't look like the Jimmy Butler I thought was going to shoot 50 times and score 70 points.
I mean, for Jimmy, in the run up to say it's just another game, it's not a big deal, whatever, and try to push it off, and then immediately with Taylor Rooks, like, the veil dropped a little bit when he's like, oh, I have nothing to say to Pat, and Riley better not have anything to say to me. And the social component too, where it was great until it wasn't, that was a theme throughout the broadcast. It was a theme for everybody, right? When we're talking about what is it going to be like when Jimmy Butler goes back to see his old team, because on the broadcast tonight, they said, well, he's still in the honeymoon phase. And like Jimmy, despite the fact that he tries to like put the brakes on this stuff and pretend like it doesn't exist, he has to know that everybody's talking about it, right? That everybody talks about, hey, Jimmy's great when he gets to a place, but it usually always ends badly. And I wonder, he's a person. He must think about that, right? How does that affect him psychologically?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think probably in the macro, not this game, obviously, because this is a one-off. This is obviously an emotional one-off. He was impacted by it, clearly. But to answer your point, I think it probably makes him more focused on being the best. It's why there's a honeymoon period that's so wonderful, because he's trying to prove all the jerks wrong at the place he just burned to the ground on his way out of town. And so I think the weird sort of psychology of Jimmy Butler is you get the best version of him when he starts, but the energy that he's carrying over from his previous team that fuels that is an energy you're probably going to experience whenever he gets tired of you 2, 3, 4, 5 years in.
Well, initially, I mean, when he got to Miami, he and Spo, as Spo mentioned, things were great, right? I mean, they looked amazing. And then we discussed this earlier on today's morning show pod, where towards the end, it wasn't even this year. It was last year, 2 years ago? I'm forgetting now. But when he got into that heated argument with Spo on the sideline, and Udonis had to step in, and then all of a sudden he's jawing at Udonis and Spo, and everybody was like, what is happening right now? And so, yeah, like the bloom can come off the rose a little bit with him. I wonder, do you think so? We've discussed this a little bit. I did a story on Steve Kerr and coaching. Actually, I did a story on coaching, how little information we have on coaches. And I talked to Steve Kerr about it. And he said that he always thought that they should be called managers in the same way that soccer has managers, because it's more about really personalities than it is so much like in games, X's and O's. Do you think that Kerr would be any better than Spo at handling Jimmy, or is it just, again, honeymoon period, and then eventually it's going to go sour anyway?
He's going to be great at it for however long Jimmy lets him be. I think the answer is no, but though Kerr and Spoelstra are very different coaches in their approaches. And somewhere I can hear our producer cackling because he also thinks they're different in the sense he thinks one is good, Eric Spoelstra, and the other is not. Our producer's a Warriors fan who does not like his head coach, despite the multitude of rings he's placed on the fingers of players there. I'm not sure he's wrong though. You think everybody's great.
Would Who kill sucks? For Steve Kerr. I'm pro Steve Kerr. Let the record reflect. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's all 30. So to answer your question, no, I don't think. What I was thinking about today, watching Jimmy, because obviously Steph was out. Does Steph Curry is the first player that Jimmy Butler has ever played with who is unequivocally, unquestionably a better player and a better teammate. I mean, that's never happened. And so what I wonder, and I don't know, is whenever Jimmy gets to that point where he's going to be sideways with his coach or his GM or this whatever, does it apply to Steph Curry, or does Steph's special status as like the level he plays at and the respect he commands, especially in that locker room, does it mean that never? I just don't know. Does Jimmy defer to Steph Curry when we're at that point? It's not going to be Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr is not going to have any solutions to Jimmy Butler's bad period, the anti-honeymoon. I think the Steph thing is interesting if they make it that long together.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, especially because now you've got two closers and who has the ball in their hands. But I think it'll be more complimentary than adversarial. Let's take a break. On the other side, Bill, I'm glad that you mentioned that Steph is the best player by far that Jimmy has ever played with, because we were discussing like his Heat legacy and what it means. And I stumbled upon a stat that kind of like blew me away. So I want to discuss a couple of different things I just wanted to discuss after a really bad loss to a terrible Heat team. We'll continue that conversation on the other side, and we'll get into Damian Lillard's injury news. Bill has an update for us about that. Don't go anywhere. This is Beyond the Arc.
Guys, can you feel it? Legends were born here. History was made here. These are hallowed grounds.
Hallowed grounds?
The NCIS squad room?
Well, I wasn't talking about that, but I was talking about Augusta National.
All right. It's finally time for the Masters.
I hear it's a tradition unlike any other.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, we're a podcast. You can get us wherever you get your favorite shows. Please download, subscribe, leave a review. We're also on YouTube. You can find us at Beyond the Arc CBS on YouTube. So go and smash that subscribe button. Bill, about his legacy, Jimmy Butler's legacy with the Heat, who, by the way, again, terrible loss tonight for the Golden State Warriors. And Steph, no Steph, doesn't matter. That team has been playing, Miami has been playing absolutely terribly. They had lost 9 of 10 coming into this, and they had only won 5 of 22 games after the deadline. Tonight was their 6th win post-trade deadline, post-Jimmy Butler. So not a great loss for the Golden State Warriors. But his time in Miami was really good. He did take them to the finals twice in 5 years. They're the 5 seed in 2020, and then they came out of the play-in 2 years later. We discussed that earlier. But then, Bill, I didn't realize this. He played 64 playoff games with the Miami Heat. He won 37 of them. Over that stretch, only the Celtics had more postseason wins, which kind of blew me away that like Jimmy during his tenure was just like a monster in the postseason. And to that point, he averaged almost 25 points per game in the playoffs for the Heat, which was the second most in franchise history behind LeBron. Bill, he averaged more points per game in the playoffs than Dwayne Wade did for the Heat.
In fairness to Dwayne, he had 4 playoff runs,
more games
where he deferred to LeBron,
more games,
right?
Yeah,
and Bosh, would get some. I was thinking about it. It's interesting you bring this up because I was watching the game thinking Jimmy Butler is the best Heat player of all time, and I immediately went to 4 or 5. But maybe, LeBron is the best Heat player of all time, even though I wonder who they dislike more there. I should ask. I know people there. They don't like LeBron. They don't like Jimmy.
LeBron,
Wade, Alonzo. Alonzo Mourning's like a legend there. I've golfed with that guy, by the way. Name drop. What a sweet man. He's a very nice guy. And then is it Butler next?
It might be. And that's a significant thing for a franchise that's done very well in a limited amount of time since being an expansion franchise. Jimmy Butler's effect, we discussed his effect on Steph Curry and vice versa. He's also had an effect on Draymond Green, who, despite the fact that he did not play well tonight and was basically invisible, especially at the offensive end, has been awesome defensively to the point where he is now the betting favorite. At least he was playing tonight's game. Producer Aaron threw that at us, and I was kind of surprised. He's a betting favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. Bill, I don't know if you caught Steve Kerr's comments about this, but earlier Steve Kerr was asked about the pairing of Draymond and Jimmy Butler, and Steve Kerr, who famously played with these two guys, likened their pairing to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. And at first I was like, what? And then I was like, well, he did play with them. And what he meant was, the quote was, there's just incredible intelligence and athleticism combined with versatility between those two guys. And I think that's right. He might be being slightly hyperbolic with those two specific players, but what he's talking about in terms of like how they can do so much and they think the game really well, and they're also hyper athletic and versatile, like kind of Swiss Army knives. I'm like, yeah, no, I think Steve's not far off on that.
And maybe subconsciously he knows in one of the duos he got punched in the face, and the current duo, if things get real bad, maybe he gets punched in the face. A similar energy, right? That's a real talk.
That's funny.
That's a ridiculous and ludicrous comparison. I like that John, Jordan and I don't care what comes up next.
Obviously, just at the defensive end.
Come on, dude.
All right.
Come on.
I mean, look, he did play with the guys, and I just think he's saying that they think the game and whatever. Fine. Let's just talk about real quick, though, because the numbers did shift here. Draymond as the DPOY favorite. We're like a week and change removed from Evan Mobley being a heavy favorite, and now all of a sudden Draymond goes, no, it should be me. I've 1,000,000% got a chance at this, and he has been really good over the last couple of weeks, but like all of a sudden, like the favorite?
I mean, the thing is, this is and Jokic has missed games, which is sort of derailed this. But it's why I kept pushing this. It's not set because this happens a lot of years where there are these number. Because my theory on this is because this happens a lot. Like very serious awards will see number shifts late in the season or crazy number shifts in December. A guy has no chance and then he wins. And I wonder if sometimes it's just voters aren't locked in on every award yet. And so Vegas is trying to get a sense based on however they piece that together from people who don't even know what they're thinking. Because I mean, I've only started to think about it in the last few weeks as I wrote about and we talked about the MVP award. And I thought, I guess I probably should be starting to really think about it in a very serious way. And it could shift again. I mean, and I think the fact that the Warriors have gone, what are they looked at 16-6 since the trade deadline. I mean, when you play well and you play at a high level and you have a spotlight on you because Butler's there, maybe people are paying more attention to what Draymond. It feels like it matters more when the Warriors matter more.
Fair. And I think like Wemby getting hurt, everybody basically assumed that it was going to be Wemby running away with it. And then Wemby getting hurt and getting shut down for the season, having a blood clot, which by the way, talking about blood clots, how that threw a wrench into the system. Now, people are probably looking around going, oh, I wonder who the DPOY is. All right. Blood clot news again, right. Bill. So we had the Wemby news that completely sucked. Now, all of a sudden, before or during tonight's game, there was various reports confirmed by the Milwaukee Bucks themselves, who sent out a statement that Dame Lillard has a blood clot in his right calf. He's now on blood thinners. He's out indefinitely, Bill. You've got some additional reporting on this?
Yeah, very brief but positive. So obviously this is they've known about this for a few days, but we're figuring this out now, and it is potentially serious. But they're talking to league sources. There's just a lot of optimism in Milwaukee that this is going to be more manageable. They hope. They're very cautiously optimistic. It's going to be much more manageable than Victor Wembanyama, right? And the fact that he was sidelined for the year. And they don't know, but they think that there's a real chance that Lillard can play this season. It depends on some factors. It obviously depends on his medical status. It depends on maybe, how long they survive in the playoffs. But they talking to sources, including some people with the Bucks, the optimism sort of struck me when I first reached out. It was much different than in reaching out to people with the Spurs when the same headline news dropped without context. And they don't know, but they think there's a world where Dame can play this year.
Well, they better hope so, because they have been locked in that 4, 5, 6 middle of the pack for much of the season with the Pacers and the Pistons, Bill. And look, right now they're tied in terms of how many games back. They're 1 game up in the loss column on the Bucks, but they're 2 games behind the Pacers. And we've discussed how difficult just getting out of that grouping will be for them, even if they do have Dame Lillard. And if they don't have Dame Lillard, Bill, like, forget about it. I think that this could very easily be a first round out for them. Giannis has been fantastic. There's only so much that Giannis can do with that team. That supporting cast is not very good. There's a reason why they traded away Chris Middleton. They decided to roll the dice and bring in Kyle Kuzma and hope for the best. That's had like diminishing returns, intermittent returns. They desperately need Dame Lillard, who's been really good this year. And in a year when a lot of people, you and I, came into the year thinking that maybe he was cooked, definitely not cooked, becomes an all-star. But man, Bill, what happens if he can't play or is limited or is in and out of the lineup? I mean, Giannis just said, there was an interview with The Athletic where he went, look, all NBA, all those awards are nice, but I want to win. And we haven't won enough. We haven't won enough recently in the postseason. And like, just hearing him say that,
I know
the Dame stuff makes me go, uh-oh, danger.
I'm telling you, this is why I wrote what I wrote back in November and what you and I discussed then. And everybody that I've talked to still thinks it is still very hopeful, optimistic, reading the same tea leaves you are, think that Giannis, if things go badly, that Giannis could say, you know what? This has been really swell. We won a championship. I'm out of here. And by the way, you're the thing about Lillard coming. You're right. Got to be soon, because the Bucks are have the worst road record of any of the teams that are going to make the actual set playoffs. And if you fall to that 6th spot, you're obviously on the road. And then you have the advantage if you make it through of playing the Boston. I know it's the Celtics or the Cavs, but I don't want anything to do with the Boston Celtics and I guess it's pick your poison. But I'll just say this. We think Cleveland's legit. And I think they are. We know Boston's legit. I don't want either.
Yeah.
But man, what I don't want to be is a 6 seed where I have to go on the road to even get the chance to face Boston on the road. Being at home, but that 4 spot, it would be nice for one of those teams to try to just get some momentum.
When the playoffs roll around, you obviously have to be good, but man, you got to be lucky too. Like, who's healthy, who can get their guys out there. Last year, not having Giannis, and then this year they might not have Dame. And like, this is an experiment that they put together where they end up moving Drew Holiday on, and they haven't been able to potentially, like, we'll see what happens. You know, they're optimistic according to your reporting. You know, I hope, you hope, everybody wants to see Dame Lillard out there, but what a bummer it would be for John Horst and the Bucks where they make this move and somehow they don't even get a postseason, a single postseason. Who knows what's going to happen moving forward, but like, not a postseason last year of Dame and Giannis, potentially limited Dame this season with Giannis now being healthy. Like, that is just such a huge luck factors so much into it. I mean, like, the whole I'd rather be lucky than good. Sometimes you look around and go, yeah.
And if you want to win an NBA championship, you really better be both. And I'm not sure they're either. I'm not sure they're either right now.
I'm not sure they are either. We'll keep an eye on that. Bill will have continued reporting for us as we move forward, and we'll keep an eye on the Bucks and whether or not Dame comes back and how soon he does. That's going to do it for us tonight. We're going to be back on Thursday with our usual show in the morning, 12 p.m. Eastern, afternoon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So it's in the morning on Thursday. Sam Quinn from CBS Sports will join me. Be sure to read all of his stuff. Be sure to read all of Bill's reporting on CBSSports.com. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody.